Hello, everybody. It's me, Ross, and welcome back to another edition of the League One Lowdown, where I speak to fans, podcasters, and journalists from each League One club to get their thoughts for the coming season. Now, this is the big one. It's Sunderland, and I'm joined by Matthew from the Roker Rapport podcast, also the websites. Well, Matthew, it's going to be the battle of the big dogs in League One. You know, Sunderland's fourth season in League One, and also Town's third season in the Tier 3. So it's going to be an interesting season. Can we get out of this league finally? But first of all, introduce yourself and let us know what you're all about.
Yeah, my name's Matthew Crichton. So I'm a writer for the Roker Rapport, and I also do the podcasting. So you'll see me on the site doing fan focuses, talking about the games afterwards, transfer articles, and then also offering my opinion on the podcast as well.
Okay, brilliant. And well, let's talk about transfer business first of all. A lot of business has been happening in League One. Some big names, big players signed. Of course, the big out for Sunderland is Charlie Wyke. He's joined Wigan. But yeah, give us the lowdown on the ins and outs. Have you been able to replace Charlie Wyke? And did that hurt losing your top goal scorer?
To be honest with Charlie Wyke, at the start of the season, a big thing was the question was, will he score goals? And I think the goals he actually ended up getting came as a major surprise. But a big factor, which isn't necessarily talked about, is a lot of it was to do with the return of Aidan McGeady. So obviously Phil Parkinson had excluded him. Lee Johnson brought him back, and he was just getting assist after assist, which was helping Charlie Wyke so much. So although on paper we've lost a very good goal scorer, a lot of the goals were very one-dimensional, and I think his form at Wigan will very much depend on how good of a crosser both wingers are. In terms of replacing him, at the minute, the man doing the job's Ross Stewart, who he signed in January, who, to be honest, for most League One clubs, they wouldn't have seen a lot of him because he spent the first part of being signed injured. But he's looked really sharp in pre-season. He offers us something different in that he can run in behind, but I think he's also about 6'5", so he's got that aerial option too. So right now, it's a big question for Sunderland, is in who can replace them goals, because we know that Will Grigg, he'll probably end up departing later in the window. Aidan O'Brien doesn't score very much. So at the minute, there's a lot of pressure on Stewart, but I do think they will recruit someone else in alongside of him.
And then with the ins so far, I know Alex Pritchard is maybe the key player that you've signed so far. Are you happy with that? And which other players stand out for you?
Well, to be honest, it's been a very slow window so far. So we haven't actually signed any fullbacks, which is the big alarming point. We've been playing pre-season without a senior left back because there's still contract negotiations with Denver Hume. And then Luke O'Nien, part of his new deal is obviously that he does want to play in midfield. So he's going to return to central midfield. So Sunderland will have two new fullbacks. So that's been the sort of one that needs to get sorted. We are getting a left back from Liverpool very shortly called Gallagher, which should be, well, it looks on paper just a youth prospect who may come in. Hopefully he'll do a job. But in terms of who we've got over the line so far, it's two very similar stories. Obviously, Pritchard and Corey Evans, both players from the league above, both great experience. Obviously, Pritchard cost 11 million once. So there's a lot of ability there. But the key issue with both players is that they both have very bad injury records. So it's sort of the question mark is, can they keep fit? But one signing who's actually been the best signing in pre-season, who no one's probably heard of, is a defender called Callum Doyle. So we've signed him on loan from Manchester City, and he's basically a 17-year-old ball-playing defender. He's one of those where he's came in and in pre-season, you just could not tell his age whatsoever. He's been really impressive, and he seems to be the sort of surprise package, you know, when you sort of unearth one of those really good loan players. But overall, I would say it has been quite disappointing considering we had a big overhaul, and so far we've got very few numbers through the door. So Sunderland have a lot of work to do towards the end of this transfer window.
Yeah. And of course, when we're recording this, is 28th of July. When this goes out, will be the start of August. So I'm sure, it's another month of the window to go. And we were speaking off air. Most of the business happens last week of the transfer window, where everyone panic buys or they're just trying to get things over the line. Premier Leagues, you know, they decide who they want to loan out, you know, their prospects and stuff. So I'm sure a lot of things will be changing. Now let's talk about Sunderland this season. Last year, going to the playoffs, lost against Lincoln City. Of course, I'm sure that still hurts for yourself as a Sunderland fan and many Sunderland fans. But finally getting into the playoffs, Lee Johnson coming in, replacing Phil Parkinson, did a fantastic job. Lee Johnson. His first full season in charge now. He's been able to somewhat, do the overhaul of the players he doesn't want, and now he's trying to create his own team. What Sunderland, of course, they're expected to be in the playoffs. That is a disaster if they don't. He's at the goal, and that's what you want.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. I think while Sunderland are in League One, I think the goal's always going to be promotion. We had 10 years in the Premier League, so for the most of the fan base, seeing us in League One is just an absolute calamity. We've obviously had a couple of close periods. We've got playoff final, playoff semi-final. It is Lee Johnson's first season, so it'll be good to see what he can do with sort of the players he wants at the club, considering he's released many. But yeah, I think for us, it's always going to be a case of we want to see us up there competing. It will be nice to compete for automatics, but I think it's very difficult to sort of say that at the minute, given that we've signed so many players. I think who we get in will probably indicate how confident a lot of the fans are on where we finish, but you would think it would be at least the playoffs.
And of course, people will call Ipswich Town, Sunderland, the big boys of League One because of the history and the stadiums. What have you thought as an outsider point of view, looking at Town's business? We've not been mucking about. We've got new owners. Paul Cook's first full season in charge as well. 10 signings in, a lot of League One quality players. We've signed a few players in the Championship as well. What do you think of that? And are we finally going to get the playoffs after the last 2 years have been a disaster as well?
Yeah, I think obviously you've said it again. Ipswich haven't messed about. I think the key signing of Fraser, that is a phenomenal signing. I would have loved him at Sunderland. I think from watching him at MK Dons and Burton Albion before, he's a really impressive player who makes things happen. So that was the key one that really impressed me, that Ipswich mean business. And I think looking back at Ipswich last year, I think you were quite solid at the back and were quite tight, but there wasn't a lot going forward. I'm sure, if I remember rightly, no strikers hit double figures. And obviously you've got Connor Chaplin, Macaulay Bonne and Joe Piggott. That's 3 players who in their career have had successful periods in League One. So it's one of those where on paper, Ipswich signings look good and it looks like you've addressed a lot of key areas that you needed. But like with all teams, it's a case of will it click? I think that's always going to be the big question. You can put money on things, you can get big players, but it's just now down to Paul Cook to get those players gelled, get the right system. But if I was a betting man, I'd have Ipswich in the playoffs as a minimum.
Yeah, and let's talk about the Sunderland Town game, because that's always going to be the big talking point. Both games, like last year, Sunderland beat us 1-0, although we had a player sent off very early on. It was definitely a red card. Kane Jackson, terrible tackle. Of course, we play each other very quickly. We play each other in November, then December. Of course, when we hit November, we'll sort of know what the league is looking like. We'll look at, hopefully both of us will be in the playoffs, but you never know. Anything can happen. What can you expect from those games? And what sort of football does Lee Johnson play? And, what can you expect for those games?
Well, first and foremost, I think there'll definitely be tight games. We've seen that last year and the year before. I think it's going to be one of those where I can't see there being loads of goals in the game, because you've got 2 good sides who'll probably be well organised, and both of them will not want to lose to another promotion rival. In terms of what you can expect from Lee Johnson's style, I think one thing he's really wanted to do is get more energy, a bit more pace, and just a bit of a higher press into this Sunderland team. He wants them to play nicer football, get players who are comfortable on the ball, but also a bit more energetic going forward. I think for us, next season, it's mainly going to be about the 3 players who will be behind the centre forward. That's where the danger will come for us, because you'll have Aidan McGeady, you'll have Alex Pritchard, you'll have Lyndon Gooch, players like that who are going to want to get on the ball, want to beat players, want to make things happen. But yeah, I think both games, you're probably looking at marginal victories either side or a draw, I'd say.
Yeah. So don't get ready for Goal Fest. I'm sure they may put us on TV at some point as well, because they always like to do that. But Matthew, it's been a pleasure. Anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think I seen an article the other day or today that I think Ipswich and Sunderland have been backed to come in the top 2 in League One. I think both clubs will definitely be up there, and I think Sunderland versus Ipswich will definitely be one of the best games I'll be looking forward to this season.
Shall we put our money where our mouth is, or should we not? Should we not risk it just in case it jinxes it a little bit? I don't know.
Go on then. Where do you think Ipswich will come then? Final position.
Oh, like to be fair, the last time I've actually predicted us to be out of the playoffs. I just felt like our both sides were just not good enough. But I think this year, I think the playoffs. I think we'll definitely maybe get fourth, something like that. I think you just never know. I think we need to start the season off well, like we have done, but then continue and keep that consistency. So, Sunderland, what position?
I do the same every year. I think my heart's always going to say top two because I think, I don't know, you always get that sense of optimism no matter how much your club sort of hurts you or disappoints you. You still always think it's going to come good. But if I was going in my head, I'd probably go with the playoffs at the moment. I think it's a big overhaul. I think we're going to have a big ask to get a lot of players in. They're going to have to gel. You know, it's still a work in progress. That's not going to be fixed overnight. So, yeah, I would go playoffs if it was with my head.
Oh, so could we expect Town Sunderland at Wembley? Oh God, that's going to be.
It would certainly be a good atmosphere. That'll be for sure.
Oh, unbelievable! A sea of red, a sea of blue. Oh, I can visualise it now. But hopefully, top two for Sunderland and Ipswich Town. But we'll have to wait and see. But Matthew, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for joining me. Hope everybody's enjoyed another edition of the League One Lowdown. Sunderland fans, Town fans, if you're watching, let us know in the comments down below your thoughts and where you think we'll finish this season. And I'll be back for another edition of the League One Lowdown very soon. Bye for now.